It's a dream more than 15 years in the making. IndyCar veteran and Oakville native James Hinchcliffe will have a new teammate this season, 28-year-old Toronto native and childhood friend Robert Wickens. There's no one happier about that than Hinchcliffe himself.
It's something we jokingly dreamed about as kids. The chances of it all happening the way that it has were 1 in a million, but here we are. He was always kind of committed to eventually coming back home to North America, and we talked a lot about just at least driving in the same series again, but to end up in IndyCar on the same team with a Canadian team owner, no less, it's just a dream come true.
That picture was probably, 2002 or so, maybe even earlier, but it's so cool. I mean, the fact that I'm here in IndyCar, my first race here in St. Pete, and then to do it with a longtime friend of mine and, arguably one of my best friends is it's just awesome.
Wickens grew up wanting to race in IndyCar, but racing drove him towards an F1 dream. And after spending more than a decade in Europe, Wickens made the difficult decision to return to North America, a decision made easier by his weekly phone calls with Hinchcliffe.
There's no doubt that he was an influence on me coming here, because if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have been that invested in IndyCar to begin with. So I always followed it closely. I always watched the races when I could. But then thinking way back, racing in IndyCar as a kid was my dream before actually Formula One. And so the fact that I'm here now, it's just crazy.
Wickens can list off the names of legendary Canadian race car drivers that came before him: Jacques Villeneuve, Paul Tracy, and the late Greg Moore, who he says was his idol growing up. He's hoping he and Hinchcliffe can inspire the next generation of Canadian drivers.
I think James and I have an amazing once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here to possibly help the whole Canadian grassroots level and hopefully get some more fans into the sport.
I think back to the guys that I idolized as a kid and the impact that had on me as a young driver. And, Canada's always been very good at producing racing drivers for how small our population is, relatively speaking. And, Robbie and I both have a huge passion for continuing that. We came up through the karting, series in Canada, the grassroots level there, and we were the other day just talking about how we can make that even better.
Hopefully 15, 20 years from now, James and I can be sitting on a couch somewhere, having a bourbon and thinking back on hopefully a legacy that we built.
Now, Hinchcliffe was quick to dub the duo the Maple Mafia, a nickname Wickens wasn't a big fan of. So, like true friends and teammates, they deliberated, went back and forth, and settled on the A team. No, not the letter A, but in true Canadian fashion, the letters E and H. Faizal Khamisa, Sportsnet, St. Petersburg.